Good morning, everybody. I'm Carolyn Boyd from Tourism Northern Ireland. I'm very, very welcome here today to the Millennium Forum. Just absolutely delighted to be here. I got the train up this morning, so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm staying here for a few days, so I'll be able to take it all in. What we'd like to do today is really just introduce you and a welcome to the TED programme. TED is part of, it's called Enterprise Development. And digital is a key pillar on the Enterprise Development Programme, and it sits alongside people and careers. Marketing, our core markets remain ROI, GB and NI. And operational, so we do a lot of work on operations with businesses, and we've done a lot of work this year on sustainability. So looking at our Leaner and Greener series, so we've got assets on our tni.com about energy, water, waste, and more preliminary food waste as well. So I'll just give you an overview of what the programme's going to be about today. So first of all, this is a hybrid event, so all very exciting. So we've got a number of people in the room today, and actually, I think from the last, we've got about 40% of the audience are in the room, and 60% are coming to us live, which I think is really remarkable. And we are recording it as well, so there's no escape. We'll actually probably get you on YouTube as well if you've missed it. So the assets and everything from today will be up on the videos on tourismni.com. Again, you can find out anything you need to know. What I'd like to do is just give you a little analysis about some trends that are coming in. We looked at our research recently, and just to give you an overview, because while my audience is the industry, our key audience is obviously the visitor, and I think we'll hear a lot about the visitor today whenever we talk through, because we were just having a chat there and saying, what I'm hoping is that when digital innovation meets the people and the experience, then that's kind of when the magic happens. But we have concerns at the minute because we are a bit concerned about value for money, and some of the trends are saying, you know, are people still wanting to travel? What's happening out there? So despite the current uncertainty, we still feel that there's a very, very strong propensity for travel, which is great news. But people are still looking for value for money, and they're still expecting really good, high-quality experiences. Not surprisingly, post-COVID, they are looking for something relaxing, and they want to escape, and that is not particularly surprising. And they're still looking for authentic experiences. There's still a lot of bragging rights going on. People are still wanting to go somewhere where nobody's gone before. And we're also very wary of sustainable tourism. And what's happening at the minute is, obviously travel, people are looking at prices and looking at good value. But the social aspect of sustainable tourism is really important as well. But the economic aspect is also important. So what we have is a kind of a new phrase that I came across, which is seamless travel as well. And I'm sure we'll touch on that today, that people don't want to be bothered about the booking. They want everything with ease. And they actually want it to be really, really easy, just to end-to-end travel. 3 out of 4 people are using, travellers are using a mobile device now, so that's become really, really important. And 56 respondents to a survey told us that they were concerned about having an easy travel experience, and probably that's because of flights and disruption as well. And over half of the people that travel are inspired by influencers or their friends and family. So that again is really interesting. But relaxation, they're booking closer to the travel time as well, which is also interesting. And one of the things that's come up for me is in ROI, 6 out of 10 people said they would bring their dogs on holiday if they could. So that's very interesting. I'm not sure if we've got a stat for Northern Ireland, but cost of living concerns are still there, but people are really, really wanting to have great experience. The key stat for me is that even though things are tight, 53% of the ROI travellers said they will travel despite the cost of living, and 46% in NI said they would do the same. So yeah, we have concerns, but the research is actually really, really positive. So what I want to do is just give you a little overview of what's going to be happening today and the running order. So we're going to hear from Nick Hall from Digital Tourism Think Tank, and Nick's no stranger to Northern Ireland. He's been back and forward, and I think one of the things about innovation is, what is innovation? And it's meant to be doing something new or doing new things in different ways. So technically we shouldn't have Nick keep coming back, but to be honest, when we go and look and try to find a speaker, we always come back to you, Nick, so you're doing something right, and I know you're very, very busy, so thank you for coming along today. We'll also be joined by Claire. Claire's from Titanic Belfast Digital Journey, and a couple of weeks ago with Meet the Buyer, I had the privilege of testing that journey, and it is absolutely amazing. And thanks to Niall from our Place and Space, and he can tell you all about that. That's another thing I've experienced, and it's really exciting. And also Derry and Strabane, so Ronan from Derry and Strabane District Council, he's going to talk about the Tower Museum as well and all their digital excitement there. We will have later on, we're going to have James from TXGB who's flying in. He's not quite with us. And just to say, everybody's going to be staying about today. Nick's flying off as well, so if you need to corral him at any point, go and grab him. But everybody else has said they'll be taking time over lunch to have a chat with us. We've also had Derry have said that if anybody wants to go and visit and hasn't been to their visitor centre, just to nip over and see it, which is great. And at the end, when there's lunch, we're not chasing anybody away, so please stay and chat. I'm up for a few days, so if anybody has anything to say, can hang about this afternoon. So really just saying thank you very much for coming today, and we'll go straight over to Nick, and very welcome. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, and that's a very nice welcome. Indeed, it's not my first time to Northern Ireland, and it's always a pleasure to speak to everybody here because there's so much ambition, there's so much determination, and I'm always really, really impressed by just how committed everybody is to being really competitive when it comes to digital. So I like that because there's nothing worse than kind of glazed faces and people who don't really want to kind of grow. So I guess everybody is here today because you want to strengthen everything you're doing in digital and stay on top of trends. Is that right? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a run-through of trends at two levels. So first of all, I'm going to take us through some of the critical digital trends that we're seeing right now that are really important for us to tap into, whatever space we're working in. And many of these trends do not only apply to the travel landscape, but they apply overall to digital. So these are just really, really sound business considerations. If, as I'm sure most of you it's the case, much of your business depends on having a really strong and performant online presence. Then I'm going to take you to the macro level trends where we can have a look at some of the things that we've just heard about there. So sustainability, seamless travel experiences, authenticity, and what consumers are looking for post-COVID as we enter a kind of a new phase, which is full of opportunity, but certainly not without a lot of challenges at the same time. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to hear from this wonderful set of speakers, and we're also going to do an ideation session with my colleague Anna here, who is going to help facilitate some creative thinking. So I hope everybody's in the right frame of mind to get into that. Okay, so what's changing in 2023, and what do we need to think about? Well, the digital landscape is changing dramatically. I'm going to save AI until the very, very end, because I know you've all heard a lot about AI. And one of the things that is really key is the importance, more than ever now, of building a captive audience, building an audience that is truly engaged and connected with our business, with our brand. And the reason for this is, there are many reasons for this, but one of the biggest reasons is the huge shift that's happening right now away from cookies. There's a big demand from consumers to have greater privacy and to be more conscious and concerned about privacy, but there's also a big push from the big digital players to stop brands being able to track users across sites. So this is really important now, more than ever, that you build your own audience and that you bring your customers closer to you in that digital space. And this is really key because the only real success we can have in digital is where we start to build our own audiences, our own lists, our own email subscribers, and our own customers who engage with us in that digital space. And that's throughout the entire visitor journey, and it's especially the case when we actually have a guest within our property or within our business that we're able to improve their experience by optimizing how we use their data to actually serve them better, not to exploit them or to use them as some kind of commodity that we can then market to. It's important we respect our visitors whilst bringing them closer to us. The next thing is optimizing every single touch point. You know, we've gone through 10 years of really exciting developments, like lots of new interfaces, mobiles. We've talked a lot in the last year about the metaverse as the next big space, which is now a big question mark as much as it's also seen as a huge opportunity. And we've got used to seeing these exciting developments of consumer tech that we can put in our pocket and designing new experiences for that. But as we enter this next phase, where AI is one of the biggest developments that's happening right now, it's all about optimizing every detail in every single digital experience we create. And somehow that's slightly less exciting to talk about. We can't show you shiny new phones or really amazing, engaging interfaces that can just really get everyone excited. But the truth is that we have to now put in the work to tweaking and optimizing every single screen, every single touch point, and every single contact point we have with our potential consumers. This means being better at things like analytics. This means understanding their behavior in a specific page or a specific channel. What is it that makes them go forward to book or to make a decision? But also, what is it that holds them off from going to the next step? And how, when we have a visitor on a specific point, can we make them take the next decision by incentivizing them, motivating them, and also simplifying the entire user experience? And the good news is that this is a domain that's been dominated by tech players, maybe agencies we work with, developers, but increasingly the tools are readily available now for all of us to be able to work on this optimization off the shelf and to create really incredible user experiences which actually help us to perform better. So this is really key to that crucial term, conversion, which is about moving someone who's engaged and inspired to actually book. And as we talk about the financial issues that are floating around right now, working on this detail, this optimization, is really, really important. The next is ambient revenue. This is something that's really exciting, and I'll touch on a little bit later about consumer shopping trends. But ambient revenue is a shift away from intentional purchases that happen because I've decided I want to travel and to do something or to see something. I research. I go through that very classical visitor journey of getting inspired, then going back and searching for information, then planning, then booking. This has now changed dramatically. There's a lot more opportunity for impulse purchases, to spark an idea and to transact or convert that idea into business immediately. And that's the case both before we might travel to a place, we might see a brilliant, something really exciting or something that's trending on social, and decide almost immediately to go and experience that, or to save that, to favorite that, to go and have that amazing experience. But likewise, it also is something that can happen in the middle of a trip. For example, this afternoon, you might see something on social and then decide to go and take that experience, to buy that, to book that. And so the opportunity to convert people is happening all over all the channels that we can be present in. And that's a really exciting thing to consider, that people are increasingly open-minded to making a purchase decision, or at least registering some sort of intent to do something. The next is trust in partnerships. As potentially the market is squeezed a little bit with some of the economic pressures and some of the global pressures which we're all very aware of, we have to think more creatively about how we build trust in that digital space and how we tap into the emotive value that sits behind tourism. This is about the motivations to do something, to get out, to escape. And perhaps that's what can this give back to me? How can this improve my sense of well-being? How can this do something positive for my community? Or how can my decision to choose a particular restaurant or go on a certain experience improve the lives of somebody else? And of course, we can't do everything ourselves, but if we build partnerships and we work on collaboration, which is also surely why everybody's here today, we can find really interesting connections with other businesses, other organizations, other initiatives that are rooted in doing something really good, or perhaps even just for very commercial reasons, have a strong sense of loyalty with a particular set of customers. So it's really important that we move away from working in silos and start to think more and more about how we can succeed working together and building fruitful partnerships. The next thing is we've dismissed Gen Z for many years. Perhaps the last time I was here, we were laughing at Gen Z. Maybe TikTok was really, really new. And we were very comfortable saying, okay, but yeah, but no. And right now, I don't think we have the luxury to dismiss TikTok as a channel. And I don't think we have the ability or the right to dismiss Gen Z as a very, very credible market that has almost come out of nowhere. We've talked about them a lot, but right now they are a very, very dominant force when it comes to both target consumers, but also target markets. So 37% of the global population are in the Gen Z bracket, and nearly 30% are part of the workforce now. So they are a force to be reckoned with, and they have extremely different behavioral habits that we need to get to grips with and get on board with and understand how to engage with. Okay, so that's a little bit of a snapshot at some of the granular digital trends. I want to kind of zoom back out now and touch on some of the bigger trends which are kind of reshaping both our industry, but also how we might play in that space where we can win business and succeed and really take our business to the next level. And I think the first thing that's really important is that we all need to be open to change. We need to be open to new ideas, and we need to be ready for transformation. And over 10 years, I've spoken a lot about, originally, digital transformation. I increasingly try to get rid of that digital word because it sort of follows me around a bit like a curse. Because in reality, it's not digital transformation that's needed. It's a constant mindset for constant transformation. And if we think about something as fundamental as sustainability, of course, digital and technology sits at the core of how we're going to achieve that transition within our activities, within our business, and within our positioning. But we can't go digital first into something like this. We need to understand the purpose, the meaning, and actually what we need to achieve and what we're trying to achieve. And then digital can serve as a really powerful conduit to help us to actually get there. The other thing to understand is that sustainability is now a standard. I did actually put the acronym SaaS. So many of you will know that's software as a service. And then I took it out because I thought this could just really send everybody in a strange direction where everybody's confused. If I understood it meant SaaS. But I think you can use the term SaaS if you want within your own organizations. Sustainability as a service, as a standard, that's another idea. Sustainability as a standard is a mindset that we need to adopt to understand that even if it presents a lot of challenges for us to identify what it means for us to be a sustainable business, we still need to go through that process, even if we can't necessarily see how we might be able to achieve everything at the beginning. There are many, many resources available. I think T&I also has a lot of great resources that can help you to make changes, whether it's trying to move to a more circular business model, or whether it's just going straight to the things that matter, such as trying to reduce carbon and seeing how you can do that in the basic operation of your business. But what is important to understand is it's not only an imperative in terms of the planet, but it's also something that consumers are now expecting to see and they want to see from brands that they choose to buy from. And if you're able to do that authentically and being really, really sure that you do not greenwash in that process, so I don't want you to leave this room and think, okay, I'm just going to call everything sustainable that's got a bit of green on it. But if you can do that authentically, and you can do that with meaning, then you will also be in a much more competitive position. And that's really key, because if we do feel a bit of a squeeze in the market, then this is the offer that's going to stand out. But there are a few things to consider here. So one of the most important things is to understand that whilst a huge majority of travelers would like to see sustainable experiences, they would like to choose sustainable experiences, that doesn't necessarily get matched with the same number that are prepared to then go ahead and pay extra for sustainability. So this presents a bit of a challenge for you. If it's something that costs more to deliver within your business, you need to find how you can reorganize the business model to be able to integrate sustainability and incorporate or transition your offer to something which is naturally sustainable, but it's also reflected in still a very competitive price point. So that's a key thing to understand. The consumer does not necessarily, and that's not the case for all consumers, want to pay extra for sustainability, but they do want to see and expect to see that from brands. So I've got a few examples of different ideas and different ways in which some of the best practices that we're looking at are doing that. And one of my favorite is a restaurant that I went to myself, and I came back raving about it because I went for a family dinner. 3 people in my group were vegan, so that kind of settled the choice when it came to restaurants. I think we narrowed down to 3 in Cambridge. And Stem and Glory was just one restaurant that was looked incredible. The menu was not a compromise menu. It wasn't, this is a vegan restaurant, and it didn't scream, we're a vegan restaurant. This is a concept which presents something very accessible and very competitive against every other restaurant in the city, and for all kinds of diners, not particularly focused on the vegan market. And what they've done here is really interesting and also very subtle. They've entered a space where they can be a true competitor, not in a niche and therefore quite a narrow and small market. Vegan restaurants famously struggle to survive as much as there's often a huge excitement about them. People, non-vegans as well, can get very excited about the opening of a new vegan restaurant. But then in the end, they often struggle to remain competitive because they don't appear to appeal to such a wide audience, and therefore they cut off a lot of their market, which in a squeezed market, we can't afford to do that. By creating a broad appeal and being on edge and trending in terms of the style, the way they deliver that experience, and the way they connect with consumers as a brand, they're able to be vegan without being vegan in your face. And they're also able to then build a lot of other credentials and values into what their brand is all about. So, in fact, they perhaps focus more on having a lower carbon footprint than they do on just being vegan. So, one of the things they do, and it's all a question of execution at the end of the day, is have, if you're familiar with the Nutri-Score, which we all have on our cereal, on all the food we buy, they've done something very similar, but with a carbon emissions, a CO2 per kilogram rating. So they have this A to E scale. I think I didn't see anything on the menu that had an E. And every single dish on every part of the menu has a carbon rating. So when you purchase and you choose what you're ordering, you are thinking about how you can actually make a positive and more sustainable choice in that process of ordering. And at the same time, as a brand, they're able to convey a very strong sense of values to an increasingly large group of customers that really would like to have a more sustainable experience. Aside from that, they're excellent on social, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but they also understand a mobile-first customer right at the very heart of the business. So when you go in, the menu is mobile ordering. You order everything on the mobile, and they also integrate really cool payment solutions that allow you to pay and also split your bill with your party all through mobile. So the whole process is very low touch, low contact, and digital and mobile first. It means that they create an environment which is very shareable, but it also speaks to an increasing market that's looking for a digital first experience end to end. And they really meet that demand without alienating those that perhaps don't necessarily want to be limited in choice. And of course, as a business, this also means they can operate more efficiently, because if their customers are ordering themselves, paying themselves, checking in and checking out themselves, then this relieves the waiting staff from doing a lot of the running around work, which can really prevent a business from being profitable and having the high turnover that restaurants need to be able to achieve. Looking at a completely different business case, but one of the things which I think is similar is the focus on the user experience. This is one of my favorites. It's a company called Goodwings. They're based in Denmark, and they've tried to make carbon offsetting and carbon reduction something which is very easy to do without having to think about it. So what have they done here? They've rethought the business model from the bottom up. So rather than asking businesses to offset every single flight one by one and therefore have to make that choice individually, or keep a ledger of all their flights and track all of their carbon emissions item by item, which is a very arduous and administrative process, they've created a platform which is a subscription-based platform based on average travel amounts, and they've connected it with blockchain-enabled verified carbon offsetting schemes, which mostly focus on planting trees to reduce the impact of travel when you can't avoid it. And so they do a lot of educational work when you go to book, when you make travel decisions about ways in which you can avoid taking that flight. But when you do have to take it, they create a really amazing user experience, which allows you to track, measure, monitor your targets, your goals, and see how you're working towards achieving that. And then using verified schemes, which are backed by blockchain technology, to actually make sure that when you do take a decision to offset, that you're not buying a tree, for example, that somebody else has sold somewhere else, which is one of the big problems of offsetting. So you have this certificate, which is verified, and this is all about helping to simplify and ease the process of making sustainable choices. Now, of course, this is aimed at the business traveler, but it's a very interesting concept of creating a platform which simplifies and streamlines all of that. Now, I want to talk to you about regenerative travel, because we hear this term used a lot, and we don't always see that connected with projects that are meaningful or that really help us understand what it means to regenerate. So if we start with the Collins Dictionary definition of regenerative, regenerative processes cause something to heal or become active again after it has changed or after it has been damaged or inactive. I think it's really important that when we think about sustainability and we think about the impact that we can have at a business level, that we actually look, first of all, outside of our business about what we think we could have a positive influence on and where we think we could help regenerate something which has taken a negative decline or has been damaged by the footprint of travel, or perhaps not even travel. It might be societal. And regenerative travel is all about helping to restore that, helping to build something better, and seeing the opportunity for tourism to be a powerful vehicle in actually achieving that. So if we go with the WTTC terminology, they say that regenerative travel enables the area environment to grow or grow again. Instead of only leaving a lighter footprint, we're using that footprint to fertilize that area so it can generate and grow even stronger in the future. Now, this is an idea, and it's a concept, it's a notion that we can really begin to think about what that means in our communities, in the area that our business is based, in the things that really matter to us or to our customers, and where potentially with new experiences and new product, we might be able to have a positive and regenerative influence on areas and things around us. And this is one I came across only a month or two ago, and I think this was a really inspiring story. Unfortunately, I don't have the time or the ability to convey the story that came to me firsthand from the business owner. But this was a set of 7 businesses that grouped together during the pandemic in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. And they were nearly bankrupt because of everything that the pandemic had caused. And they asked the government to fund them to do something meaningful and something good while they couldn't operate their business as normal. And 7 competitors all decided to work together and to clean up the ocean around the British Columbian coast. Thousands and thousands of microplastics. Truly shocking when you see the amount of plastic that they are putting onto this huge container ship. And this took several months to clean up. And it was the largest ocean cleanup mission that's ever been conducted. And if you just see that, it's absolutely horrifying to think that this is everything they were able to collect around the coastline. A very, very challenging job, but one which opened their minds to a different way of doing things in tourism. There were 2 key things here. The first was collaboration. This was 7 competing boat operators that have finally found that they're better off working together and sharing their common idea for a better environment by doing this as something meaningful collaboratively. And the second part of this was to actually recognize that as tourism businesses, they can be part of doing something truly good and regenerative, which helps to bring out something much more important, which is protecting the pristine nature, which is absolutely central to their product. And they have now realized that this is also something which connects with their customers. So a typical tour with one of these companies is anything between $10,000 and $15,000. Definitely out of my price range. But what they did not expect is that when they told this story, the customers who are paying $10,000 to $15,000 actually asked them if they can take part in an ocean cleanup whilst they're on a cruise around the coastline. And this was a huge shock to them because they considered this to be a luxury market of premium travelers who definitely wouldn't want to get their hands dirty and start picking up rubbish. And now on every cruise, they dedicate a day to cleaning up a beach or a cove or a part of the ocean, together with volunteers who have taken the cruise. And that's an incredible success story, and I think it's one of the most powerful stories of what regenerative travel can look like if we really think about what matters to us. So, thinking about community. Community is really, really key. And I spoke about it at the very beginning. If we want to make a change, and we want to do something sustainable and purposeful, we're probably not going to succeed if we try to do it alone. For Earth Day, this was one of the apps which was featured in the Apple App Store. And I thought this was a really great example of how important communities and digital communities are, but also the ability that we all have to both tell a story, communicate meaning and value, but also engage people in that online space. Well, this is an app, but not everything has to be in the space or the confines of an app. You can also build a website that helps you discover projects. And this app starts with a simple survey with 5 questions asking you how you travel, how you make decisions, how much you consume in your day-to-day lives, how often you purchase new clothes, for example. And then it gives you a slightly scary colored graphs and scores, which helps you understand your impact. And then it connects you to projects all around the world and also in your locality that can help you to make positive actions, to also give you advice and tips on how you can reduce your impact. It's a very, very simple concept, but it's something that we can probably all think about how we might be able to translate or adapt something like that to our own environment. And it's a really simple concept as well, because a survey followed by suggestions is actually something that we can all envisage within our reach if we're creating digital platforms. And the thing is, for us to have an impact, we need to tap into the things that matter to our communities. Our communities, that's both around the tourism business that we operate, but also the communities being our customers and those that we want to engage and we want to bring in to our business. And only a week ago, so this is all very recent, I just recorded a podcast with someone we've collaborated quite a lot with. And I thought I would take a little excerpt because something she said was very, very powerful to me. And I think this demonstrates how a concept like the UN's Sustainable Development Goals can be so within reach of our own grasp and our own daily lives if we actually think about them.
I think one of the really big moments was when I at some point realized that I'm actually in the SDGs. When I was working with the SDGs, I got across the goal on wanting to stop discrimination girls everywhere. And while I was trying to translate that, I suddenly halted and realized, oh my God, this protects me. Like, this is standing up for my own being. And that had never happened before. And I found that a very powerful moment because all of a sudden, I wasn't just someone who was called to action by the SDGs, but who was also a benefactor of what the SDGs were aspiring to. And really seeing that I was in that agenda somewhere was a very powerful moment for me.
This is just an example of how important it is to connect with people at an emotional level, the topics, the sense of purpose which matters to them. And to maybe lighten things up a little bit and to sort of carry on from that theme, I thought I would show you this example from Switzerland, which is an initiative called 100% Women Challenge. And it's all about challenging women to achieve whatever challenge they set themselves, and to do that collaboratively, together with their peers, and set in the backdrop of Switzerland as obviously an epic backdrop for anything that you might put the label of challenge onto that. And they were able to tell the stories about these different women who all had fascinating backstories, who were all setting themselves different challenges to reach their own peak. And this created both that opportunity to create a sense of empowerment and invite people to challenge themselves and to set what they would challenge for themselves, but also to speak to a community in a way which is meaningful and important, and to also communicate values and a message, which is something that Switzerland Tourism felt they needed to stand for and they could actually speak up for. And the community value behind this is so powerful because that is a story which resonates in a very strong way amongst those key audiences that they're trying to engage in that online space. So in the end, we see that it's really important for everything to connect. A very different example at a business level is Contiki. And Contiki have worked very closely with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And they set out a number of goals that they wanted to really prioritize and to adapt their product offering to be able to achieve and to actually make an impact on those goals. So they developed a set of experiences called Make Travel Matter. And these were experiences which were slightly different to their normal experiences and were actually rooted in creating a positive impact for communities wherever they take travelers. So I'll just show you a little example of some of these. They present different Make Travel Matter experiences. They show you why this experience and why your decision to take this experience can have a really positive impact on the communities that it touches and why it's so important. So I'll just play a little clip from this.
The cooperative.
Iraq Al Emir Cooperative was established in '96 as an all-women run cooperative that is supporting the ladies in this neighborhood to really share some of the cultural values that they have. The Tread Right Foundation is supporting Iraq Al Emir Cooperative, and together we'll be working with this cooperative to upgrade the gift shop. But I think the more important piece we'll be working on together is to help the cooperative become a viable business.
We've come across so many women on our travels around Jordan so far who are not only exceptionally warm, but they're also extremely well educated. Traditionally, in Jordanian society, a woman's role has been seen as in the home. So it's really been great to see job opportunities being created for women through tourism.
So yeah, we basically just spent the morning with them, seeing a little peek into their daily lives. They're really diversifying what they can offer to visitors and tourists in an attempt to become more of a viable, sustainable business.
So this is just a small example of how we can think about creating experiences which not only create incredible visitor experiences, but also leave a really important footprint and try to address things that perhaps we can have a positive influence on as an industry. So what are some of the keys to thinking about how we can be sustainable and more purpose-led in our business approach? Well, the first is to think about collaboration. We absolutely need to think about doing that together and making sure that we ask ourselves, are we committed together to making that change? Secondly, thinking about community. All those examples that I shared are rooted in building a sense of engagement with communities, speaking to communities about causes and ideas that really matter to those communities. There's also a brand, a very powerful brand asset to have communities behind you, but it can also be rooted in meaning and something purposeful. Empowerment is a really important factor. Actually, not only doing something good, not being charitable as businesses, but enabling others through the work that we do, enabling others to realize an opportunity or to maximize or develop a potential or change something directly themselves, rather than just giving back, but not necessarily creating that empowerment. And then, of course, it's really important to make sure that what we do has a genuine impact. The more we can be transparent, the more we can measure it, the more we can tell a story around that impact, the more important it's going to be for us. Can we state the problem very clearly and then empower others to be part of creating the solution? And can we speak to a cause? Today, this is a kind of strange new world of marketing where it's more and more about causes and impact than it is about products and experiences, but somehow they're deeply intertwined, because at the end of that journey, it's also about the storytelling, and this is where it's a win-win at a product and a business level. The more authentic your story, the more positive you can share a story of change and impact, the more your brand, your business will be relevant amongst a larger group of audiences in that community that you've recognized is both important for you, but important for those that you're creating an impact for. And so this is really the keys to being a purpose-led business. But as you can see through all of this, none of this would be possible if we didn't see the opportunity for digital and technology and all of those platforms that we can engage in to create those experiences. And that's an end-to-end visitor funnel. So from the discovery, from even interpreting and hearing about that cause, which really matters, to finding that bookability or that ability to be part of that, whether that's visiting or spending money or being part of a campaign or an initiative, right through to being able to demonstrate the impact and create that virality that's just naturally shareable because it's so, so powerful. Okay, so moving on to trend number 2. I think there are 5 or 6, I can't remember. So the financial squeeze. It's not a very nice one, but I think it's one that we have to mention is there. We've been talking we're all very aware of inflation, and it doesn't just hit us at a business level with energy costs and with food costs, which means that our profits and margins are squeezed sometimes beyond a point we can tolerate because we maybe already had very tight margins. But it also affects our customers who perhaps don't feel quite so excited to go out and spend money or to go to something which is going to cost them a lot to enter. And so somehow we've got a double problem here because not only are we making less profit, but our customers are less inclined to go out. And so that is 2 times the problem of the financial squeeze. So here are some numbers which are either depressing or optimistic, depending on how you look at it. 36% of travelers are choosing destinations where their money will go further. This is according to Skyscanner. And another piece of research we looked at also reveals a second level to this, which helps us understand what that means a little bit better. So one of the key shifts in this space is not necessarily the propensity to travel, it's the sense of having the ability to travel and the ability to go out. And as we can see here, paid attractions are actually the biggest ones to suffer. Perhaps not a surprise, but it's important to put it out on the table, that if you have ticketed entry, and when you go into this research, you'll see that the biggest ones to suffer here are theme parks, because theme parks have a high ticket entry price, and therefore they have an immediate obstacle that prevents you from maybe going in because it's perceived, and perhaps it even is, quite expensive. And on the other hand, free attractions are actually seeing a more positive sentiment. So more interest, more searches, and greater willingness or even determination from visitors to seek out free attractions. Now, that doesn't mean that we all suddenly have to make everything free, but it perhaps means we have to make something free or think about how we bring customers in who have that hesitation because we've already created that paywall. Now, the tech and the digital industries have been doing this forever. You've probably all heard of the business model, a freemium business model. That's where you bring customers in and then they upgrade when they like or they use something. And we've got to start trying to maybe adopt this a little bit more within our work as a tourism industry if we want to win those customers that are feeling the squeeze and that are slightly more hesitant to go and make a purchase decision. So I wanted to share with you some examples of some of the content, the biggest trending content that's happening on social right now. And as you can see, and you've probably all come across, let's just see a show of hands, who's watched a video on Instagram, maybe even TikTok or Facebook, that is showing best free things to do, or parks, or, okay, so already a significant number of you have come across this kind of content. And there's a reason for that, because the algorithms are tuned to show you things which not only you like, and to show you more of that, but also your peers, your friends, your communities are also liking. So this content is very powerful. And if you want to be relevant and get in front of the right audience, you need to think about both how to be part of this content, but perhaps even be the content creator or work with others that are very close to you creating that content. So that maybe means if you're a hotel, for example, maybe you can't see that you can just make a room free, but you might be a really good guide, or you might have others that are really great content creators around the business that can create a best free things to do around the city of Derry that always starts at your hotel. So sometimes it's thinking about the subtlety in which you can build yourself into stories as well and create really good content. And this is, I've just come across, mainly because I was taking the flight here and I decided to opt for no bag, which is a first. And I just came across hundreds and hundreds of videos of how to get everything into under-seat bags, which is now the new trend. So somehow Ryanair, which has now been the first, and it's created a trend that the whole industry has, of course, then followed, was the first to create an under-seat bag-only ticket. And this would normally be seen as a really negative thing, right? So they're taking away the ability to even bring a hand baggage onto a plane. But somehow the positioning that they have is just right. It's actually, the message is, we are really cheap and we're keeping the tickets cheap, even when prices are going up. And here's how you do it. Here's the hack. So for a certain group, this is actually not a negative message, but it reinforces the brand values of Ryanair as being the cheapest, the lowest cost airline in Europe, even if they treat you badly, even if you have to work around all of these rules, and even if you have to squeeze everything into a dirty laundry bag to be able to get on a plane. But somehow, this is really good content on social, and it doesn't negatively impact the bag at all, the brand at all. I'm not saying everybody should go for that, but there's some different ideas about how to position and how to engage through content in social. Okay, the next is looking at mobile-first experiences. Now, mobile is not a revolution, but I would say we're perhaps going through a second revolution of mobile, where not only are developments like AR really moving to another level right now, and there's a lot of new opportunities emerging in AR and the technologies that exist there. Surprisingly, AR is not part of my trends today because I thought that was too predictable. But also, most of the major brands have seen a huge, huge uptick in mobile users in the last 6 to 9 months. And this is, of course, partly because of post-pandemic. Everybody's going out and experiencing their lives more. But also, we experience things in a more ambient and contextual way. And that means we have to remind ourselves of the importance of converting and inspiring people in those mobile-first environments, both at the search and inspiration stage, but also when it comes to making a decision to purchase. And to talk to you about some of those slightly more ambient ways of making purchases, here is a really interesting trend, which in China has already exploded, but also outside of China, this is a trend which is still maybe a little experimental, but it's quite an interesting opportunity, I think, for tourism to tap into. This is an example of Tommy Hilfiger. They do regular live events on social where everything in the live event is shoppable. So you can purchase the clothes that the models try on. And the key thing here is, of course, it's sales, but somehow they present it in such an informal way that it doesn't feel like a sales show. It feels like somebody walking in and out of a dressing room on a live show with a camera running, trying on different outfits and discussing them with friends. It's somehow so casual and so informal that if you're the right audience, it will actually be really enjoyable and interesting to watch. And then you can simply tap here and bring up the list of clothes that you've seen and buy them directly from your feed. So it's a really interesting trend that we're seeing. And as much as perhaps that may seem somewhat technical to implement, there are many easy ways to implement things, even with very little digital knowledge or experience. And an opportunity is to think about how you can create live events, going right back to what I was saying at the beginning about building your own audience that is connected and engaged with you, and connecting them with the experiences that you know you can offer. So if you're a restaurant, for example, you might offer behind-the-scenes chef school. You might offer tips and tricks on how to cook with this or how to do that, and at the same time connect that with the opportunity to upsell. So if you think about a huge moment like Christmas, you might have a limited number of places in a really high-priced offer, and you can create demand long before the Christmas season by doing, we're going to show you five Christmas pudding hacks that everybody needs to know about. Join us live, and join us then. And if you join us, you'll also be the first to be able to buy a ticket to our special Christmas dinner, whatever that is. So thinking creatively about how you can create something that feeds your audience with amazing content, that connects people with the personality of the brand, usually behind the scenes, informally, but also creates a sense of momentum, a sense of reveal, a kind of early opt-in to purchase something. In the makeup world, this is an example of something very similar happening, scheduling lots of different live events where there's that opportunity to hear from well-known makeup artists about their tips and tricks and buy some of the cosmetics that they show. And I think in tourism, this is something we've barely exploited, but it's an interesting transition from the period where we watched everything online, streaming, to now a different sense where we are slightly more in the context of our day-to-day lives, and we have to make a schedule for that. The other thing, wherever the user or visitor is in that journey, they might be inside your property, they might be in a restaurant at a table, or they might be out on a tour, to think about how to make a quick, instant and seamless process to buy or to upsell. Something that you could also create as well. So you could create a tour around the city of Derry that you do as a business. And in those different places, you could offer the opportunity to buy that experience or buy that artwork or buy a print of that mural And thinking about how you can upsell every single touch point is a great way to think about all the ancillary revenue that you can build on top of your core product. But one of the key things here is to think about absolute simplicity when you do that. And again, for those of you who are not developers, there are also many tools that will allow you to create mobile-first and natively built interfaces. We use Stripe a lot, for example, and you can create a product page, and with one tap, you can click Apple Pay and buy. So thinking about also the fact that users today expect more and more to be able to make a purchase without the fiddly hassle of trying to enter all the card details and the name and address and everything else. Think about identifying the tools that will help you do that in a very fast and seamless way. And this is an example of also how we can do things completely free of charge. This is Folkestone, which is near where we're based in Canterbury. Well, actually, Anna's based in Denmark. And Folkestone have a festival every year called the Triennial Festival, which has lots of artwork all around Folkestone. And they decided to create a discovery trail using the app What 3 Words. It's a free app, and it gives you a 3-word address for every 4x4 place. So in this room, we could create an address for that corner over there, for example. And then they create a printed guide, so really low tech, where you can go out and you can discover sculptures and artwork in parks and all around Folkestone, and just have a really great experience using What 3 Words as your guide. So it also shows that sometimes we don't need to try to overcome or try to develop something really technical. We just need to be smart about the tools we use to do that and be effective in how we communicate that. And in effect, what they've done is created a mobile-first product experience by developing a discovery trail. That is a very easy thing to do. It probably takes 1 or 2 days to build something like that. At the other end of the scale, and unless you have big budgets, so I'm looking maybe at a few key players here, thinking about a full end-to-end app experience does have some scope today. So whilst we've been through a period of creating and having failed apps, if you have a voice and a relationship with your customer, and you can create a really premium experience with that customer, especially if they come back regularly, then apps actually still hold a lot of potential, especially for developing more data that you can own and build on yourself. So here's an example of Vienna. They created a city guide because they felt that all the city guides of Vienna were just really poor and under-delivering. And they decided to create a user experience first, a personalized and a data-led way of experiencing the city as a mobile companion app, but also bringing in things like audio trails and creating a really, really rich experience. And so there is still space for that in today's mobile environment. Here's an example of Smålands in Sweden that recognized that one of the things that they wanted to do was to convert and convince families to visit and families to go out and spend more and do more. So to address that, they connected the need to have free things to do with the opportunity to create a playful experience. And they built a set of challenges which get families to go out around Smålands, which is a region in southern Sweden, and discover Smålands in a really playful and gamified way. A much simpler interface than the previous version, and therefore also much lower cost, and something that can be done through mobile web interfaces as well. You don't always need to build an app for something like that. You can also build a mobile web app. Here's an example that we recently came across in Abu Dhabi, and I think this is one of the best examples that I have to say I've ever seen. Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, have developed a mobile companion app which completely augments the experience of visiting a gallery. Now, I'm kind of surprised that not more galleries have got onto this and gone further with this, because I would say this is a no-brainer and something that I would expect if I'm visiting a gallery. After you've registered a few key pieces of data, you have the ability to search by putting in the pin pad and having the audio guide. I recently went to the aquarium in northern France, and I had to pay for that feature on a handset. So that's really not the way to get engaged with your audience. But they also include image recognition, so you can scan artwork and you can read about that. And you can collect all of this and take it home with you. So you can also experience that artwork when you get home. So actually anybody in this room can download that app today and experience the Louvre Abu Dhabi virtually. And it just goes to show how we can create really premium mobile-first digital experiences. I think there's a few things that I would share as takeaways here. I think it is important to have a story and a theme if you're creating a mobile discovery trail or a way to experience an attraction or a city in a way that's playful and fun. Think about gamifying that experience. Think about the interactivity that you can create. It can be very simple and fun. Even survey tools like Typeform can allow you to capture a few key pieces of information and have a kind of logic-based Q&A way of working through ideas. So it doesn't always have to be developing something with hard code. Also think about how people interact with every point on that. So keep them engaged and make content more than just information in a text format, but something that we can share, that we can play with, that we have different ways of discovering. One of the key things is simplicity. The whole user experience, especially in a mobile interface, needs to be fast, lightweight, and minimal. And also thinking about how to make things fun and rewarding. So there's actually a reason to be doing that. It's not just giving you information on another screen, but it's actually giving you a different way of experiencing that altogether. Okay, trend number 4, social first strategies. So we talked about TikTok at the beginning, and we did try to avoid making this too much about TikTok. And whilst the TikTok users are neither the most influential or the largest user base that we should consider today, they are the largest rising and the most interesting that are setting trends. Therefore, we probably will spend more time looking at TikTok than anything else today. Just some stats for you. So 60% of TikTok users said they become interested in visiting a new destination, including something like a museum or an attraction, not only an actual place, after seeing it on TikTok. And 45% of millennials actually went on to visit that after they've seen something on TikTok. And there's a lot of other research which supports this. It shows a very direct correlation between consuming and engaging with content, but also the intent or the decision to go ahead and actually experience that. And that's supported across different areas, from visiting an attraction to traveling to a new city that we've seen. And so we can see that TikTok as a medium is really, really creating a lot of influence in a very interesting way. And for those of you, who in the room is on TikTok? Okay, yeah, so maybe 20%. And who in the room has seen a TikTok video on Instagram? Okay, so that speaks for itself. So this is why, even if we're not on TikTok, much of what's happening on TikTok seems to arrive on other channels. So this is an example of the Museum of Ice Cream in New York. It's also now in Singapore and I think about 8 other cities. And it's a great example of a tourism experience which has been built with a social-first thinking for a social-first generation in mind. The entire museum is really bright colors, pinks, yellows, blues, and full of like really crazy stuff, like slides that help, you can dive into all of this. And this creates a really, really huge hype on social, something really shareable, something that creates a lot of buzz. And it's not actually about the brand itself sharing this, but it's about all the visitors who went there sharing their own experiences. So it's a really good example, I think, of creating a social first visitor experience. This is in Mallorca, right? Ibiza. I knew it wasn't me. This is in Ibiza. And this is an example of a hotel that decided to create a zero suite, which was a glass suite. Oh, yeah. A glass suite that you could stay in for free. No catch, except you had to stay in this glass suite for free. So this is something that is a little bit of a tactic, really, to create a huge hype and conversation online. The problem with the glass suite is it's transparent, and so you can just imagine all sorts of things that people have done on social, both outside and inside the suite. But more than anything, it's a talking point that spreads like wildfire online. And of course, most people who end up staying there do not stay in the zero suite. They go there to see it, and they hear about this hotel, and they want to stay there. So creating one little element in your experience can be enough to create a really powerful viral story that can pick up and just go crazy online. But it requires creativity, and unfortunately, you just can't copy and paste what someone else has done. So it's really about what could really stand out and speak to those audiences. Slightly different is thinking about how you can activate different audiences. So we all know that social, and within that social space, there are many, many different communities that all have their own influences. And if you speak and engage with one community, you'll connect with the extended networks of those peers and those groups. And so thinking about how you can bring brilliant content creators into your business is another thing to really consider. One of the things that I've been seeing a lot of on both Instagram and also on TikTok is Bang Bang Food Hall. It's in a very lost part of London, northwest London, an area called Colindale, but there's a massive Asian food hall that's all about actually creating a kind of overwhelming experience of food, which has just spread like crazy across social. Because it's such an amazing experience full of lots of different senses, tastes, and colors, and bringing the right influencers and content creators there, the micro content creators, has been a really, really effective way in creating awareness. And now people want to go off the beaten track to discover this. Likewise, New York, NYC & Co. worked with Kontiki to identify key content creators from different communities at the very end of lockdown and create a sense of urgency to go out and discover all the things that they had missed whilst everything was locked down. And maybe, not my favorite, but it kind of, let's say it kind of, I couldn't believe it at first, but it's true. So this is Ryanair, and every single post on Ryanair's TikTok account is of this style. A lot of memes, a lot of GIFs, a lot of stupidity. And I think it's not a recommendation. You cannot be risk averse. But it's definitely interesting to look at what some of the successful brands are doing on these channels, but also to see how informal and how absolutely casual and fun they have to be in this space. And it's also not for every brand as well. So Ryanair, for example, make fun of their customers who say they'll never fly with Ryanair again. And they just say things like, you will be back. No matter how much you hate flying with us, we guarantee you're going to come back. So they really, really go for tongue-in-cheek. And they know that they can take that risk. That's not something that every brand can do or should do, but it's interesting to learn from. And then I was talking to you earlier about Stem and Glory, the vegan, or should I say, the climate-friendly restaurant. And they've created really interesting learning videos, which is very, very powerful and effective because they give value and they give something to an audience that actually really appreciates it. So it's a really powerful way of getting the brand across without selling it. So I'll just play a little clip of this, but this is about cooking with tofu.
I'm the executive head chef for top London vegan restaurant. I'm going to talk about top tips for cooking with tofu. Number one, you need to know your tofu. You need to select what you're choosing before you start anything. That is top number one tip. Because if you're making desserts, you go for silicone. If you're making something a bit more of creaminess, you need the firm, and then the extra firm is more like if you're doing steaks or you're trying to have that chewiness and that texture. Number two, you need to know how to marinate the tofu. You need to understand that tofu always have water content inside of it. No matter what you do, no matter how much is pressed, extra firm, it doesn't matter. So you need to wrap it with tissue anyway when you cut it or when you...
So you get the idea. This is quick, informal, packed with tips and ideas that really gives something to your audience. And it's about filming casually on the go, not doing a high-end production, and using a select number of smart apps which help you chop and clip everything together. Now, has anybody heard of Binley Mega Chippy? Does anybody know the song? Does anybody want to sing the song? I've been singing it for the last few days, but let's just have a little look at this, because this is a different approach.
Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy.
Okay, so this went absolutely crazy, and then this is what happened next.
The Binley Mega Chippy in Coventry is no ordinary chip shop. On Monday, dozens of people were queuing outside before opening time, including a group who'd hired a minibus to travel all the way from Scotland, and others had come from Norwich and Liverpool, Gloucester and London, all because of a social media sensation. Our correspondent Navtej Johal has been to see what kind of place it is.
Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy, It's the takeaway taking the world by storm. In recent days, this unassuming chip shop in a Coventry suburb has become a TikTok sensation.
I just explained to my mum that we're going to some fish and chip shop like 2 hours away and that I need to be woken up early.
We started off from Worcester and we were on our way to Bicester Village for a half-term little day out, and then my teenage son Tom suggested that we came here to the Binley Mega Chippy.
It's 3 hours before it opens.
I know, but we're very keen. We wanted to get here before the crowds.
The trend is to take a photo or video of yourself at the chip shop and upload it with a catchy jingle that everyone seems to love.
Binley Mega Chippy.
Videos with the hashtag Binley Mega Chippy have been viewed around 150 million times.
Binley Mega Chippy.
Staff say the business has seen 10 times the customers it usually does.
We had a busload from 12 people from Dundee yesterday. I was chatting to some people from Newcastle.
What do you make of all this?
I don't know, but I'm loving it. I'm just going to go with it.
Why has this place become so popular?
It's very hard to tell you what the formula is, but I think you've got a few tips and tricks there. But there's no guarantee of success, and sometimes you just can't design this stuff. But it just gives you a little example of how powerful channels, especially like TikTok, can be and potentially can be. But it's important to remember that these are also trends. So if we are successful with one trend, we need to already be thinking about what we do next, because trends come and they also go. Okay, the last trend here is streaming and on-demand becoming a social experience. So we've seen through the pandemic this huge consumption and switch to things like Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime. Now everybody has a streaming service, and they kind of dominate how we consume media. But what's really interesting is the opportunity that this translates to when it comes to tourism, because not only are we changing how we watch content, watch television and TV series, but it's also become an increasingly social experience. So if you've got an Apple device, you might know about SharePlay, for example. You can watch together with friends who you're not with in person, and you can discuss and talk about the program in real time when you're watching something on demand. I think now Disney have added something like this to Disney+. And so it's really becoming a huge trend that we socialize and we share whilst we're watching content. And we can see from all the reports that there's a huge percentage of travelers that have then been inspired to travel to a destination based on something that they've seen in a movie or in a TV series. And I think you all know the success of Derry Girls and Game of Thrones to be able to translate that to Northern Ireland. So it's a really, really key opportunity. This is an example that I was really inspired by here. I think, I guess most of you know about this. So incorporating little bits of a set or themed elements into a business can be a really powerful way of creating sensation and an excitement amongst fans who want to then go and experience that in real life. And I really love this because I know that this is something that's been coordinated with the DMOs as well. And it's been a very, very effective and successful campaign to tap into audiences who love Game of Thrones and bring them over to Northern Ireland. Also thinking about how you can create that sense of social sensation. This is the ABBA party in London. It's ABBA the party. It's a restaurant that actually has a performance throughout the evening. And by the end of the evening, everybody is standing, dancing, singing, and it becomes a really, really sensational experience. So of course, you can't all get the rights to something like ABBA or create something this yourself. But it's really, really interesting to see how many businesses that are successful these days are incorporating things that really, really perform and work well on social. So this is an example.
Stop scrolling. I think I found the best experience in London. Mamma Mia the party. You'll dance with ABBA songs and have a full-course meal while enjoying the amazing show.
Okay, so we all have seen a lot of data that shows that people are looking for joy and happiness in their lives. And actually a lot of content consumption is about somehow seeking that sense of happiness and escape. Here's a very different example. This is the Hogwarts train that's announced every year, and another example of creating a bit of a social sensation.
Customers are reminded that mindful guests
9, 8, 7,
have your attention, please? The Hogwarts Express is now departing from platform 9 3/4. All students are kindly reminded to stick to your ticket and board the carriage at once. All aboard!
You only need to see the number of phones there to know that this is more about sharing that experience than anything else. So think about the shareability of experiences that we incorporate into what we're doing. Now, I used to always talk about the different stages of the visitor cycle, but in reality, when we think about many of the things I've just shared with you, that entire visitor cycle is shrunk down to being unaware and then experiencing. Maybe experiencing virtually, but sometimes experiencing almost directly after we discover something. And that is one of the biggest shifts that is important to understand, is we need to be ready to convert and to really build on that engagement immediately when it happens and where it happens. And it can happen anywhere. Now, to end this part, before we go on to our next speakers, I thought I would just talk to you a little bit about AI, because AI is definitely the biggest thing that's happening right now. And I just want to explore why this is so important. So the reason AI is huge right now is because of so-called foundational models. And these are powered by self-trained models which have analyzed terabytes and terabytes of data over many, many years that's unstructured, and they're self-taught models that have been able to create their own AI models. And these are driven by large language models, which you will maybe hear a little bit more about, which are able to then understand prompts. So we can then speak to a large language model, I'll give you an example, that allows us to fill in the gaps or to complete a picture. And this is creating so-called generative AI, so producing words, producing articles, producing social content, or even images that is generated through patterns of learning that. Likewise, code can now be written or completed or verified with AI models. And also, we see that vision and images is also another area. So one of the most inspiring examples is a set of glasses which allows people who are visually impaired to see what they're picking up by reading a prompt. So if you pick up a bottle of milk, it reads to you in your ears that you've picked up a bottle of milk. So this is also not only about marketing, but also about sometimes accessibility and solving problems. And the reason it's really interesting is because today AI models can predict the end of things like this. So we all know that no use crying over spilled milk, yes, is the correct ending to that phrase. And today, those large language models can be prompted to complete a sentence like that intuitively. And that is opening up a lot of new opportunities for anybody who's concerned about product, strategy, or marketing. So this is, I think Anna typed this into ChatGPT. Can you give me a business idea to set up a business in Derry related to Game of Thrones? And it came up with a whole plan, and it came up with alternative strategies, and it can pretty much produce anything that you ask it to produce. Not always brilliantly, but sometimes pretty good. And one of the things Anna asked it to produce is then a website for her new Game of Thrones tourism company. And this is the website that she created in under 60 seconds. So just to give you an idea of how quickly things are moving forward and how AI-based tools can transform how you do business, this maybe gives you a little taster of that. This is 60 seconds of work, and I think that's probably not something I could have imagined even 12 months ago. So it's a really key opportunity. I'm going to leave it there, and we're going to workshop and explore some of these ideas later on. But I just want to say thank you very much for your attention, and thanks for having me back in Derry.